All right, friends, thank you so much for joining. And this is part of our Grow More effort to support you guys, keeping the torch burning for the learning for you guys, so that you guys keep learning some new concepts, new things. And we intend to do such events more often, something which is very meaningful and valuable to you guys. So we are very mindful of that also. We are mindful of your time. So in that regard, we came across Dr. Reinhard, who is really an expert in this space. And so today's event is going to be with him, and he's going to be sharing with you guys his own experiences and learnings around coaching. Our intent are three here. One, to help you guys get exposed to what Dr. Reinhardt's philosophy of coaching is, and then pick up what he teaches you and try and inculcate that into your own practice as a coach. And then, of course, if you have any question and answers, questions, we can do a Q&A session as the time permits. So this is how we will go. And I'm going to introduce Dr. Reinhardt. He is a professor of sport and coaching psychology in University of Copenhagen, and he dons many hats in that space. He's a visiting professor, Master of Public Governance, Copenhagen Business School. He's a PhD in psychology, further education in psychotherapy, coaching and leadership. He's also an accredited coaching psychologist and associate fellow with International Society for Coaching Psychology. Head of the Coaching Psychology Unit, Department of Nutrition, Exercise and Sports, University of Copenhagen. His research interests are majorly in coaching, self and identity, learning and leadership. He's an invited founding fellow of the Institute of Coaching Professional Association at Harvard, member of Scientific Advisory Council, the Coaching Institute, Harvard Medical School, associate at the TAOS Institute. We focus on social constructionism in theory and practice. Honorary Vice President of Society for Coaching Psychology and former board member of European Mentoring and Coaching Council, EMCC. So he's donned many hats. He also runs his own private practice as a coaching psychologist, consultant, speaker, and workshop leader. What is more interesting is about his foray into writing books, where he has probably penned down all the learnings that he has had in the coaching space till now. Dialogue in Coaching has been a very famous book. In fact, it has been awarded as a coaching book of year 2019. His latest book, Third Generation Coaching, which is also the subject for the day, is also doing very well and has been highly appreciated and very well received in the coaching community. With that, I'm going to invite Dr. Reinhardt to say something about himself. If I have missed anything, there was a long list of all the accomplishments you've had. So if there is anything else that you want to add, or otherwise we can move on to, we want to learn from you, so we can move on to what you intend to share with us. Over to you, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm really honored to be part of this event. I've never spoken as a professional in India. I have visited India for twice during my life, and I really enjoy the country. So namaste to everybody. And so I'm really looking forward to share some of my ideas. One of the book, the Third Generation Coaching book from Springer, is actually printed in India. So yeah, the physical printing is done in India. So when the book came out, I had contact with some people from India doing the final layout and things like this. So you have one part in my journey. So in that sense, so I would like to speak about third generation coaching, and don't misunderstand me when I use this term. It's not a closed system. It's more a specific intention, and I will go further into it during my speech here. And everybody who is sharing this event will also receive my slides. So if I don't come through, if you have so many questions that I can't make it, you have the possibility to read my slides later on. And I have also a list of references of some articles, and which are some of them are actually free to download, and so you can always have a look later on about some of my work. So I actually don't really know exactly how you came in contact with me, but of course I had some talk with you, with some of the members here of the group, and so I'm quite excited to see how we really can relate. But to say some most important thing maybe in the beginning of my speech, before I go more into the material, there are two major aspects. The one aspect is that coaching, you know, as you have heard, I originally come from the world of sport, which is actually where coaching is a lot associated with, or the sport is associated with the term coaching. And this type of coaching is actually the first generation coaching. So in that sense, you know, you have a clear goal. You want to participate in the next Olympic Games or the national games of India or Asia or whatever. And then you work and you have specific smaller goals, and then you have finally reached the end goal where you can participate in a big competition. But my understanding is coaching came into other areas, into the business world, and I think in the nearer future, coaching will be very big in the health area, because medical treatment will be a lot more personalized in the future, because we will get equipments. We have watches, and we can follow our sleep rhythm and our heartbeat and so on. So, and this will be enlarged in the future. So maybe in 10 years' time, the biggest area will be in coaching will be in the medical field, So, and my basic idea to name this is that because society has changed, coaching has moved from the world of sport to other areas. So it's the societal changes which actually make coaching develop. And because coaching is around in the business world or in other areas for maybe 30 years around, but society has changed. And I want to go into this during my speech here. And so coaching has to be further developed. And this is something where I really get, in the recent time, also a lot more attention. So now I'm going so far than to go to India with my ideas. And I have given workshops also in the United States and Britain and Ireland and Australia, and so many different countries, South Africa. And so some of my ideas are getting more attention because I'm maybe one of the few who is more about or includes thinking about changes in society into my understanding, and therefore coaching has to be moved forward. This is one aspect. And the second aspect is we do know so little about solutions, we sometimes even don't know what our goal is. So it's important for coaching to develop further is that we are much more a co-reflective partnership. So we are much more, the coach is taking a much more active role as a reflective partner for the coachee. So these are actually two central points. So if you can switch off now and go home, and you have already got the basic message for this. But I will continue and share my slides with you. So here is actually my starting point and my intention. So societal changes, and of course, my world in Europe and northern and Scandinavia is very different from the situation in India and other Asian countries. But there are some general similarities because we all are much more active on the internet, social media, And this is actually one of the aspects which I will highlight a bit later. So societal changes are actually one central reason for me, which make it so important to really reconsider coaching as a kind of dialogue structure. So my mission is to really encourage people, coaches, a form of coaching that is much more collaborative, reflective dialogues, and there are moments of symmetry, which is actually not in traditional coaching, where the coach is normally just a facilitator. So this is actually makes the relationship also very important. So the alliance between coach and coachee is actually one of the central aspects. And this is also highlighted much more in the research literature, that the relationship is actually a thing which is the most important. So let's have a look at societal changes. And here I refer to a South philosopher who actually works in Germany, but he has written a book which is called The Burnout Society. And he speaks 20th century, so the last century, we could distinguish between inner and outer, between a friend and enemy, between what is my own and what is foreign or different. What happens? And so in the old day, when we were working in a business, we could blame the boss. The boss is stupid, or I don't like him or her. So, and this was, so we could make this difference here between what is my thing comes from outside. So today he says, he speaks about the supremacy of positivity. And this has nothing to do with psychology or something like this. It has to do with the idea that we can do more and more and more and better. And we are, you know, like the production lines, everything has to be better. And this leads to a kind of saturation that it's getting too much for us, or producing overcapacities. We have hundreds of TV channels. And if we just go 40 years back, we had maybe just a couple of TV channels. Communication overload. We are hyperactive. We are doing several things at the same time, watching TV and having our smartphone and answering emails or chats or whatever. And this leads to somehow a shallow attention that we are not able to focus really. And this leads to a kind of psychological state of tiredness, of exhaustion, of stress, depression. And a lot of kids, especially boys in our country, they get a diagnosis of attention deficit and hyperactive disorder. So what he says is actually the reason that we are getting victims and subjects of our own performance. So we are actually actively looking, so are we doing good enough? Are we in good if we compare us with some people, are we doing as good as our neighbor or our worker and things like this? And this leads actually to, and this is even increased through social media. So I once had a coachee, a director of a company. He looked at his LinkedIn profile and of his friends, and he was angry when some of his study mates at university had a higher position. I mean, somehow a bit crazy, but we are doing self-surveillance. So we are watching each other or ourselves, whether we are doing good enough. In the old days, it was our boss. Now we are doing it by ourselves. So this leads in the understanding this guy, Byung-Chul Han, to a kind of control society. But it's not a control society where there's a big brother watching us, maybe also this, but here in his understanding, it's more, you know, that we are controlling ourselves. And this makes it quite difficult. So, and he continues in his work to describe this. There is a process, there are two processes. There's a process of acceleration. Everything goes faster. And on the other hand, mentally, there is a kind of stagnancy at the same time. So we are losing our mental stance, our standpoint. We do not know who we are. So we are getting somehow in a kind of identity crisis. So, and it's getting more and more difficult to distinguish what is important and what is insignificant. And in that sense, we lose our narrative that helps us to choose and differentiate, so that our story, our path, where to go. And this really extends the necessity to talk to people with some expertise, psychologists, coaches, good friends, good colleagues who can help us to really get closer to our own narrative and our own selves. So, and he Hahn describes this as that we are moving from a marching age. He uses this metaphor that, you know, we walked into a common and a similar direction, and now we are in a buzzing age, you know, like a fly on a window, moving forward and backward and doesn't know how to come out. So in a later book, Hahn describes his work. The book is called The Expulsion of the Other. And here he really the consequences for ourselves in regard to extensive use of the internet. And he says that the time in which there was such thing as the other is over. I mean, he's very radical. So if you think about algorithms in the internet, we are always with people who are like-minded. And he says it's so important that we meet people who think different, who really try to poke us, to really push us in a new direction, to make us think about ourselves. So if we only meet people in the internet who think the same, then something like the president of the United States, who really used the internet, the former President Trump, who used the internet very active, and he was able to really build up a community so that he got voted there. And this can be in other areas, that we really are only connected to people who think the same way than we do. And Hahn says this is the end of the... So he says here, the other as a secret, the other as a temptation, the other as eros. So you know that you are getting some about things. The other as desire, the other as hell, the other as pain, disappear. So today the net changes into a special resonance space, a kind of echo chamber, which only supports similarities and avoids otherness and foreignness. And this might be quite dangerous. So true resonance presupposes the proximity of the other, of differences. And this is actually the role of a coach, a coaching psychologist, that you present something where you include a different position somehow, because that's the way how your coaching partner can develop. So true resonance can be found through what I call transformative dialogue. So the old school first generation coaching is somehow outdated. I mean, you can use it sometimes when you have when you have talked for a while and you have come forward to a more clear goal, but it's actually quite difficult to support people to move from A to B, because sometimes B is unknown. Well, then don't want to move forward. So we need a form of transformative. That's actually my term. Transformative coaching is a transformative dialogue. That means that we need to transform in our understanding of ourselves or move on. So, and here we need the support and help from another person. a person who thinks different, who introduces new aspects, who highlights something which you have forgotten on a life story. So, and transformative shall support us in our search for meaning and for a life based on somehow ethical values. And here I think some of the interest of ICF is also met in this. So just to repeat very quickly, the three general, there are a lot of different methods and specific approaches included in every kind of these three generations. It's just a general overall structure of the field of coaching. And my idea is that I still use all three forms, but I really want to improve the third generation perspective. So the first is that we have a problem or a goal which we try to help our coaching client to clear up. The second generation is, and in the first generation, it's still somehow the idea that there is a causal relationship, a linear connection between things. So there's a reason for why things do not work. And if we really include modern or late modern or deconstructive theories, then we need to have other approaches who are much more complex, who include complexity theories and things like this. So the second generation is more looking for possible solutions, playing with some kind of possible solutions or future perspectives. And the third generation is actually that we invite our client to a kind of reflective space where I term that we as a coach are a fellow human companion. So, and my ambition is to reduce the problem and goal perspective of the first generation coaching. I still know that we need to have it sometimes. I'm fine with the second generation, which is a lot of systemic thinking, social constructionist thinking, some ideas of appreciative inquiry. So different approaches are included there. And then we have what I really want to highlight here is the third generation coaching, where coaching is a reflective space and the coach becomes a fellow human companion. And here, just to highlight this, the purpose is to dialogue with the coachee about specific thoughts or events by reflecting on the meaning and value behind it. So it's a longer conversation. So if you have some challenges, so it's important to go behind and lift the dialogue also up on a kind of meaning reflection and what is central value for the person. So it's a focus on meaning making, on values that might highlight the basis of one's action and express something more general attitude to life, work, family, social community, and so on. And here the coach is more a witness or a witness thinker. And here I will go into it a bit later about and say more about the relation. The coach becomes a co-author of building new stories and co-create new stories in the dialogue, in a collaborative dialogue with the coachee. So these are, for example, third generation models. So it's still new approaches to a systemic or social constructionist coaching, collaborative practice, narrative coaching, and a lot of different kind of philosophy-inspired coaching. So existential coaching or ontological coaching, hermeneutic coaching. There are several names for different kind of third generation approaches. So if you really want to have the baseline of what my idea is, there's another Han here, a Buddhist monk, Vietnamese, who also worked in the area of dialogue, not really in coaching. He says, in true dialogue, both sides are willing to change. So this is basically my idea that the coach is also part of a changing process. And if the coach is an active, collaborative co-thinker in the dialogue, he or she can share some of the thoughts and ideas which come up by listening to the coach and reflect something back. And there things become really interesting. So, and here I would like to stress this relationship, coach and coachee. So there are moments of symmetry between both parts. So it's a collaborative partnership, and reality, the reality for talking about, is co-created between both parts. So it's important to create a fellow human space. And we do this while the coach is curious and irreverent, so wondering about how things are for the other, and in that sense be an active part. But it's also the other way around, to really think, if you are the coaching partner, to be somehow also curious to understand, so what are you as coach actually telling? How should I how can I understand this and maybe include in my own understanding? So I really want to highlight third generation coaching in difference of here now, to start with a normal dialogue, which looks like this. Minimum two people included, and they talk about a specific topic. It could be the weather, it could be family issues, some work issues. They just talk freely and have a interchange. And if it's really a good, well-working dialogue, people are actually on the same level, and it's this kind of symmetric relationship. If we look at coaching dialogue, most on the framework of first and second generation coaching, it looks a bit like this. So we have the coach here, the coachee, and as coach, we really try to encourage the coachee to have an increasing reflection on self-understanding, and we help through asking a lot of good and exciting questions. If we look at third generation coaching, you can see that I move the coachee here to the outside and put the challenge or the theme or the problem in the center. Then everything is actually the same in the first place, but then there's something new coming up, and this intention of co-reflection. And this is actually the red line here, arrows, is actually something which is new. So the coach supports the process of the reflective process in the coachee. The coach is somehow a sounding body or a sharing witness in the dialogue, and in this sense also somehow a fellow human partner or co-author in the dialogue. So what I really want to introduce is the art of lingering in dialogue. So really not pushing the dialogue, but really linger on specific issues, really go in depth with what is really the meaning behind things, what are really central values. And I think also from your culture and my knowledge to your culture, you have a lot of spiritual understanding which you can include somehow in the. So, there's a German philosopher, his name is Heidegger, who actually introduced the art of lingering by using the term contemplation. So, and here I use this picture of these two people who are on a train track, and you can be sure they know that there's no train coming, and they sit there and linger and really have a talk where they talk together. And here I would introduce a metaphor, and this is the metaphor of the tuning fork. And the tuning fork is, to understand this, is that there are the typical relationships as something like an ideal typical state, but they are only for moments. Of course, the coach has to be the driver of the dialogue and but there are still, you really meet on a more abstract and fellow human level, where you reflect on something which is common values and things like this. We can use the understanding of a tuning fork. So the coachee talks about something, and the coach tries to be on the same frequency as a kind of resonating partner in relation to what is said by the coaching partner. So in that sense, the dialogue becomes a kind of transformational learning process for all parts, even if it's group coaching. So everybody can have the opportunity to learn about things. So I was asked before my speech here whether I would like to give some kind of, I really would like to, I think it's more, I would say the most important thing is that you get a kind of attitude of how you relate to your coaching partner. This is the most important thing. And the central activity here is that you really try to look at the central activities, and this is maybe the most closest I will come to maybe some kind of toolkit. So the first idea is that you invite your coaching partner to a collaborative process of meaning making, because meaning making is actually very central, and you develop meaning through specific experiences. You develop meaning by reflecting on something, on your thoughts, and you put words on it, and suddenly you get, we normally call it aha experience. So, yeah, you get an idea of what is happening. Or you also create meaning by doing specific activities. So, and this is where the focus is on self-insight. So you get more elaborated in knowing yourself by looking at the meaning. Then the second aspect is that you talk about values and specific identity issues. So what is really important for me? What are central values? So it can be a kind of social relationships can be very central for you, that you have some kind of good sense of yourself in a specific situation, that you approach self-awareness, or that you often in public business responsibility, if you work as a nurse or medical doctor, or so then a responsibility for patients is a central value. So these are aspects where you have to look. So here, of power to act by looking at your incarnated values. So they are really somehow become physical. They have become embodied in a sense. So, and the third aspect is that you really try to give space for unfolding narratives. So, because narratives is actually, so your story of your perspective in how you want to improve your career, how you want to go forward, what is central if you work together with other people, and relating to stories is actually very central. So, and telling these stories is actually doing identity. So, and here I would like to have some kind of references to maybe some people in European philosophy. I'm not so familiar with the Indian philosophy, I'm sorry, but Martin Buber, who is a Jewish thinker who worked in Germany about 100 years ago, he has written a book, and he says that he is a dialogue philosopher. So he says, through you become I. So he says that it's actually so important that we need the other to develop. Without the other, and there are also the person Byung-Chul Han, the South Korean I mentioned at the beginning, they all talk about the importance of the other to develop and the importance of otherness. So you have to be challenged in your mindset to be able to develop. So this is one kind of reference to philosophy I want to do here. Søren Kierkegaard, I don't know whether you are familiar. He is the most important philosopher of Denmark. He's an existentialist who has lived 200 years ago. And he is probably regarded as the first, I mean, it's a bit funny because there was no coaching at that time, but he is the first third generation coach of Denmark, and maybe the first third generation coach in the world, because he has developed existential philosophy, which really has spread it, and it's translated all over the world, so into English and other languages. And he says to find a stance is so important, and you do this with the help of the other. So you need the other to develop. So my way of saying is to find yourself as the coaching partner is to be touched by the other. And to be touched by the other, it's a interrelationship. So I as the coach, I'm touched by my coaching partner about what my coaching partner tells me. And this is somehow, you know, I'm the resonating body for some of the ideas and reflections of my coaching partner. On the other hand, my coaching partner can also be touched of my reflections. And in that sense, there is an interrelationship between both parts. So experiencing the other as a fellow human companion is what I'm talking about. Here I go back, and this is the end of my speech. I go back to the starting point of this South Korean person who has written this book, The Expulsion of the Other. And he says in the end of his book, sometime in the future, there may be a profession known as listener, because he says there is nobody listening. We are just clapping and supporting and sending likes to each other because we agree, but we are not challenging the other. We are not bringing something in which is different, where the other can develop. So for a fee, I mean, this is really funny to listen to or read as a coach. For a fee, the listener gives an ear to the other. I mean, is this our future? And I mean, it will be a really big business for a lot of work for coaches and people who really want to help others to grow. And in the end, he says, people go to a listener because there's hardly anyone else left who will listen to the other. And this is also my hope that we will never go to this stage, that we can have built social communities where we support each other, not just as professional coaches, but really support each other in schools and universities and local communities, that we really try to listen to other people, and in that way to support each other and work with the spirit of third generation coaching in our community. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Reinhard. This was brilliant, and this so beautifully resonates with how the coaching is evolving in the world. I'm really glad. I'm going to sum up some of the learnings that I took from here for the sake of everybody else's learning and awareness. I really like the whole concept of that burnout society that you mentioned about, and that is so true today. Like earlier, we used to have an other. Today, that other is within us. Like we ourselves are, our own enemies. So there was another. If he was a friend or an enemy, that doesn't matter. But there was another. Today, that other is within me, right? So I am like all the time struggling within myself. So obviously, there's a dire need of coaching in such a situation. Also, I like that slide of how things are working at a very fast pace, either accelerating. If somebody is growing at a fast pace. If somebody is stagnating also at a fast pace. So that is also a very important reason why we need coaching today. And I loved the concept of third generation. The first one being problem solving, like, you have a problem, let me help you. So that's what was, and I think this is how coaching has also evolved. So we're helping somebody,
right,
figure out a problem, and then we say it's a solution focused coaching. So we are focusing on the solution and future, and now we're talking about the person as a whole, right? So how we can focus on that person, what is meaning for him, what are the values for him. So that's really what truly a third generation coaching is. And my own experience being in this space, coming back to ICF, relating it to the ICF. So as we all know, ICF has 3 different levels: ACC, PCC, and MCC. And as we evolve as coaches, I strongly believe that with every next level we are going, maybe ACC is probably the first level, first generation coaching. PCC, we go between second and third generation, and MCC, probably we go to the third generation coaching. This is how I would draw a parallel to the ICF stuff, I would say. I also loved the way you narrated the difference between the two, how in first generation coaching, there's a coach, there's a client, and there's a problem. So, so they are just looking at the problem, both of them. In the second one, where we are trying to help client get some solutions, move forward, futuristic approach we have, coach helps the client and the problem helps the client reflect with the problem and find some self insights for themselves. And third is where coach can also contribute by directly communicating with the client while he's doing all that he's doing in stage 1 and 2. But here the coach is also contributing. And that was really very nicely said, I must say. I also like the concept of lingering. And we all are familiar that we say as coaches, give space, use silence, right? So it's so powerful to linger. I mean, there's no rush. Why should we be in a rush to help the client get solutions, right? And I'm reminded, as I said that, I'm reminded of another coach who would say that I have stopped helping clients as a coach. So I just be there with the client as a coach, and then whatever happens for the client happens, right? So these are really some of the very powerful learnings and takeaways that I wanted to highlight. Thank you so much. I think we have about 10 more minutes. Somebody wants to ask a question or make a comment, share an observation. Please feel free.
I have a very obvious question. Maybe many of the coaches would want to ask that. So sure. My question to Dr. Reinhard is that how can oneself develop as a third generation coach? So what kind of, what do I need to do as a person?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the most important thing is to be aware what happens while listening to the other, how you are being touched by the other. And because, for some people, they come to you as a coach and they think they are the only person in the world who has this problem or this issue or this challenge. And if you are, sometimes good to know that, sometimes it's maybe just, I can remember a situation where I really struggled with this myself, and I was so confused at that time. So you can say this as a coach, and this is maybe the first step to really ease up, help your coaching partner to ease up, to really get a sense of that it's not unusual to have specific challenges, to have doubts about yourself or whatever it can be. So I think my term is to be this resonating partner, really to use this idea of the tuning fork. So you are, as a coach, you are the tuning fork for the other, and you try to go on the same frequency, if I can use this metaphor a bit more. That, when you hit a tuning fork and you put it on the table, it starts to have this tune. And if you hold another tuning fork beside, then it goes in the same frequency. It starts to swing also. And this idea is actually so important. It's not important that it's really the same tone, but I think what is important is that you are getting somehow touched, that you start to linger and you start to talk about it, and you develop some ideas, and you lift the dialogue on something which is not only on specific situations, but you lift it also sometimes on something more general. Talk about how do you show responsibility to another, or how do you share care to other people. So that have some more general talks, because this is actually where you develop the power, which I was talking in one of the slides, and which is also highlighted in the title of the lecture, that you really somehow through values you develop an incarnated power. You have less self-doubt about yourself, and you have increased ability to act in the moment, and where you feel I'm doing the right thing. And this is so important to people a kind of direction and help them to develop, even though they are in a very stressful working environment. It can help a bit in that sense.
Thank you so much. It's like developing my own presence in a way that influences the coachee, my client.
Yes, I think to be present is so important. To be present, what happens in your sensual system and your thoughts, and also be very present in what is happening in your coaching partner. How do they feel in the moment? Be aware and really meet the other on their level, so that you don't move too fast forward, and that you really are able to relate to the issues of your coaching partner.
And to take it a little further, so I just want to ask one more thing, that how is third generation coaching happening in organizations? So because everyone is very familiar with the problem, goals, format, solution focused future format. Yeah. So this transformative aspect of coaching, of course, this also happens in the other two parts, but this is purely extremely transformational aspect or perspective to coaching. So how is it happening?
Yeah, I mean, there are of course many different ways how this can be included in organizations, corporations. So I mean, one way is that you really introduce coaching as a kind of normal way of relating to each other as co-workers, as that you are showing open-mindedness, and that you can invite co-workers and colleagues to and also invite yourself as a coaching partner, that you go to approach another person, a colleague. Peter, I don't know, I'm not so Manta. I'm really having a problem here. Can you help me with this? So can we find maybe 20 minutes to talk about it, and that you help me to really reflect about things which are difficult for me? And then you receive this invitation. So this is one way. And if you work in a team where some specific values are maybe even stated by the organizations, but they are only stated on the internet platform or their web page or something, but they are not really incarnated in the spirit of every single worker in the organization itself. So then you really, for example, if you are working in health services, care would be a central term. Caring for other people is central for nurses, for medical doctors, for other people in medical services. So that you can have, for example, so how do we, in a very stressful situation, I mean, you still struggle with the pandemic in your country, and the health system is really on its edge of not being able to function anymore. So, and a lot of health workers are very stressed. So how can you keep up the spirit there? I mean, coaching will not be a solution for everything. So it can help maybe to build more closer relationships between co-workers. And there they could talk, how can we keep up the spirit of being caring for other people despite of this very challenging situation? So you could have a talk in coffee breaks or and really help people to reflect on this, for example. So these are just two examples for how things might work in different organizations.
Thank you, Dr. Reinhard. So friends, if you have any question, please type in the chat box. And in the meantime, I'm going to sum up something that I kind of took out from what Dr. Reinhard said when Gaurim asked the question, how do we as coaches go to the third generation coaching? How do we inculcate that into us? I think one thing which what I could take out from there was that we should be comfortable with silence. We should allow the client space. So that word lingering should actually linger in your mind now. So just get kind of hooked to that. That will make a lot of sense. That is one. Secondly, don't be in a rush. There's no need to rush. I mean, I've seen, having trained so many coaches, and as we grow and evolve as coaches, we are in a rush as coaches to help the client. So hold on to yourself, be in your skin, stay cool and calm. There's no need to rush. Your client will definitely get the results, but you should be cool and calm within your own self. That's the second thing. Third is be present. Like when you are present, you are able to listen. And because you are able to listen well, you will be much more comfortable in saying what you are seeing, feeling, hearing from the client. Like it's like be open to. So what I'm trying to say is that as coaches, what we have learned is we have to ask questions. Third generation coaching is also not only about asking questions, but also sharing your observations, whatever insights you are getting for the client, giving it to the client. So that's another thing that you want to become comfortable with. So I think it's a journey that you need to embark upon. Embrace silence. Don't be in a rush to help the client find solutions. Be present, listen well, and be confident in offering what you're listening. So you don't have to really stay with the questions alone. And that's what will take you to the third generation side of coaching, I would say. So if we have some more questions. Yeah, Dr. Reinhard.
Very nice summary.
Thank you. Right. Okay, so, okay, just let me see if
so Nilima is asking, can you speak a bit more about the tuning fork? That means reverberating at the same frequency and presenting a diverse perspective at the same time. That's her question.
Sure, I think we'll take that and then we'll probably, we are almost there. Okay, Dr. Reinhard, how would you like to address
so
this?
I didn't get, so talk more about the tuning fork.
So I can say that.
Yes.
Yeah. Say, yeah.
So you said, hi. You gave the analogy of a tuning fork, two tuning forks who reverberate, which means they're resonating with each other at the same frequency.
Yes.
However, you also spoke about being the other, unlike the algorithms who are presenting just the same perspective and something which always agrees with you. But the coach becomes the other who presents a diverse perspective. So I was thinking about, can you give some more clarity on being the tuning fork, but at the same time being the other?
Yeah, right. I mean, what happens? I mean, of course, the analogy doesn't fit totally because, I mean, it's the same frequency and we will never be on the same level altogether because, I mean, if I come with my resonance is also a good term. So, but I'm resonating on my experience, on my life story, on my understanding of the world, understanding of things. So it will always be something different than the other. So, and I think this, we can't be totally different. We need to have an understanding of the other on the one hand, but we also need to present something where we include ourselves with the otherness of being ourselves. So I think it's natural because we have a different story. We have a different life experience as coach. So we will always bring something in. And in some situations, of course, we also have to see us being kind of a bit provocative. Irreverence is a term here. So, you know, challenging the other, but not challenging too much. We have to, you know, the metaphor of scaffolding is important, so that we build steps to develop. If it's going too fast, if we move too fast in a different direction, then the other will say, oh, I can't manage this. I don't even get the idea of things. So it's important to really, in the first place, to understand the other, and then presenting something in a very natural way. So how you might see things from the perspective of your coaching partner in a slightly different way, which might be an interesting path to develop. And this is, you know, the basis is to listen, to be present, to don't push. And then when you have met a stage of where you meet each other somehow, then you can also be much more challenging, because there is a trust between both parts, so that difference is also, otherness is also acceptable for your coaching partner. I hope that this makes it a bit more clear what I meant with.
So if I can rephrase it, it would be opening a peephole before you open the window, and opening a window before you open the door.
Yes, right.
Thank
Somehow.
you.
Dr. Reinhard, just want to ask one very small question. Which book of yours would best help us inculcate these attitudes that you are talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think actually my newer book, The Art of Dialogue in Coaching, for the first, it's a lot cheaper, and it's not so thick, and it's somehow more easy to enter. And if you have read this book and you want to go more in depth with some things, then you can take the other book, the Guide to Third Generation Coaching, as a more, yeah, it goes much more in depth with you know, some kind of examples from my own work. It goes more in depth with some research things. And in this book, I also present something where I had interviews with very high-ranked coaches, international well-known coaches, where we had a talk what is important for them. So it's a different book. But the Art of Dialogue in Coaching from Routledge, I think it's sometimes it's even on sale for 20 or 25 American dollars or something. So it's not so expensive, and it has only 170 pages or something. So, but you get a really good introduction to this. I'm very proud of this book. It's worthwhile, and
this is the one that has been awarded the 2019
Yes.
Book of the Year, right?
Yes.
On coaching.
So, Dr. Reinhard, are you comfortable spending some more time with us?
Yes, it's fine.
All right, Mr. Manta, let's go to your question.
Yeah, actually, I thought with permission, I'll share my experience of, relating this to, since he talked about listener, the listening skills that actually play a role here. Level 1 listening is what we talked about, first generation. Level 2 listening is around, second generation. And level 3 listening is around third generation. Actually, we are moving into fourth level of listening, trying to integrate all these 3 levels and then present it to the coachee to move forward. So that's what I thought I'll share the perspective here.
Oh, that's a good
That's
point.
A good experience. Yeah. Obviously, when we are moving from one level to the other, to this next level, all our abilities are changing accordingly. Listening, questioning, offering observations, not assuming, not judging. So the level keeps going higher, right? As we go. Excellent. Thank you so much. That was a good insight. Mm-hmm. Okay, friends, if you have any question, please type in the chat box or raise a hand. Avdesh, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask a question on burnout, because I think initially when Dr. Reinhard shared about the burnout society, I think that set the context of the third generation dialogue.
Yeah.
So how does that relate with, with the larger context of coaching that we have been practicing so far versus what you're now suggesting as a third generation?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, I think there is a development also in the learning to be a coach, as Manta stated in the just before, so that you really have to develop. And I mean, and coaching also develops through the times we are, things are changing. And I mean, in Europe, it's actually like this. And especially the young generation is really pushing very hard because they are very active on social media. They are always comparing themselves with others. They are very much in doubt whether they are good enough, whether they are looking good enough, and all this stuff, which really is a very hard burden for the young generation. So if you are in a worker, as I said, if you use LinkedIn, promote yourself, and so everything is so. We are very self-centered, and what we are losing, and this is actually why aspiration coaching, or the idea behind this, is that a good society, a well-functioning society, is actually on social capital. Social capital means actually that you have communities, that you have organizations where you talk together, where you support each other, where you are able to be vulnerable, and where you are able to open your heart to other people and share something which is difficult. And if we lose this ability as human beings, then we are lost. And we are challenged by especially these algorithms, which really pair us with similar people and which push us more and more in a very competitive, personal competitive direction. So that and the problem is really self-doubt. And I can tell you from statistics in Denmark that about a third of all women under 30 suffer from stress. A third of the women population under 30 years in Denmark suffer from stress. And this is because they are very eager to have a good education, to have good marks, and they want to look good, and they post pictures and everything, really stressing them because they are always in the situation of being somehow in competition with others, and this creates self-doubt. And we have to really against this and really develop social capital. And this is also important in organizations to really have a future also in workforces. So I think
I can share a perspective on this burnout with your permission.
Yes.
As an international trainer, I take a burnout session. So there are aspects to that. That is the emotional symptoms, and then physical symptoms, and then psychological symptoms. The stress, which is not okay, it is continuous, not controlled, it will result in burnout. So I'm not getting into the symptoms in detail, but helps in controlling at the emotional level the symptoms. If you can handle that, you don't let it pass that stage of, okay, from emotional to physical to psychological. If it is psychological, you'll have to go to a therapist, nothing that you can do. If it is physical, you may go to a doctor to take some medicine, but you still address at the superficial level. But at the emotional level, coaching plays a huge role, especially when I talked about level 3 listening and level 4 listening. I think does a fantastic job in addressing that at emotional level. That's my perspective. Thank you.
Excellent.
Dr. Reinhard, I want to ask one small question. It's just emerging out of me that, you mentioned about values and making meaning. So now when I'm pondering on, your session was so insightful and beautiful, it kind of triggered that, true humanness in me. So, what are some of the core values that as a third generation coach, I can connect to, or our coaches can connect to?
I mean, it's the first thing is to develop. Maybe it starts with respect to the other, respect to otherness in the other, to develop trust, to striving for the good and the beautiful. Also, the beauty in life is very important, I think, or really share something where people get some kind of energy and experience also. I mean, we also have to work as coaches, we have to work from own boundaries. You know, when I mentioned these young women, for example, to free them from the boundary of always comparing yourself with others. Because, I mean, you have to develop a trust in that you are good enough. I think these are important values. We really have to support people, and we all struggle from time to time, and we all come into doubt about whether we are doing the right thing and whether we are good enough. But we have to help people to have a trust in themselves also. So I think maybe it's a good way to finish this
Thank you
webinar.
so much.
And I'm really thankful that I feel that a lot of the ideas I presented find a good ground, and so I see people clapping, and that's great. And thank you we can all be happy about the last 75 minutes. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Reinhard. On behalf of Gromor
maybe
Coaches
another
community,
time.
we thank you a lot. And your ideas were really powerful. They resonated with us. They took us to the next level. Thank you so much.
Yes. Bye-bye, and all the best to you.
Thank you. Same to you.
Keep safe.